So many of the people that I hear from talk about being blocked. It's a heartbreaking condition, friends. It's like on one hand, you have these desires and these curiosities and your imagination. And then on the other hand, there's all these barriers and it's hard and you're frustrated. And so today I'm going to talk about one of the barriers I hear about the most, which is physical space. So stay tuned to hear some of my solutions around physical space for your art. Hey, I'm Josie. I'm an artist. I love color, process, and material, and I love to talk about the artistic process. Today I'm going to talk about physical space for your art. A little bit about my own physical space. I work in my house. I have a lower level that's almost 100% art space at this point. And I also, when we moved in, my husband and I were like, we're just never gonna park in the garage because the garage is our shop. So yes, it is Minnesota, and yes, our cars get dumped on and full of snow for most of the year, but we park out there because we have a table saw and we have a belt sander and we have a bunch of other cool equipment that we need because we do creative stuff with that stuff, which means we can't park in there. And it's a choice we made, right? We have decided that what is more important is our creative space in the garage than keeping our car under shelter. I'd rather scrape off my car and have a table saw than have a nice warm cozy spot for my automobile. You know what I'm saying? So really, it's all about your priorities. And as I've advanced as an artist, my requirements for space have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And I have given myself permission to have these spaces that are dedicated to my creative process. Partly that's now because I make money at it, so it's kind of like I can justify it. But even before I made money at being an artist, it was really important for me to have that physical space. Even back when I was in my early 20s and I was living with roommates, every single apartment I looked at, my roommates and I knew we had to have a space that would work for me to make art. It didn't have to be huge, but it was like, this is a top-down choice. I started knowing I needed space. I knew I needed light. I knew I needed like certain parameters around what I was gonna do with my art, and I made that plan at the front end. Now, you may be in a small apartment or house or whatever your living situation is, and you just legitimately don't have space. You didn't move into that space thinking you were going to need, a room or a table or whatever. So let's talk about that for a second. What do you do when you actually have no space? I am just going to go out on a limb here and say the feeling of having no space is likely psychological and not physical, because you can set your stuff up in a closet. If you'd prefer to store your old linens and ratty old luggage and old clothes that you don't fit into anymore but you hope someday to fit into in that closet rather than your art supplies, you are making a value decision about what you think is important. Your old ratty stuff is more valuable than your art supplies? I'd suggest that you reframe this discussion a little bit, because having an art space is really important. It's very difficult to put everything together, get everything out and then put it all away every time. You know what I'm saying? It becomes a barrier. I totally get this. This happens to me because I work with a lot of different materials. So just the setup between acrylic and watercolor can feel like an insurmountable obstacle. It's like it's painting. I already have a station that I'm standing in right now, but it gets cluttered and it's like full of stuff and it's life, and that's just kind of how I live. And my assistant Mary here is like nodding because she comes in and she cleans up my stuff. And if you don't have an assistant, I'm sorry, Mary is not available. So forget it. Forget it. You cannot have her. She's mine. However, I have a lot of stuff going on. I'm planting some seeds over here. I have a child that leaves random stuff around. and it gets pretty crazy and wild, then that's kind of the point. It's okay to have a section of your house that's not maybe 100% organized every second. And so give yourself permission. Give yourself permission and then use your elbows a little bit. Throw an elbow and push yourself into a physical space where you can make your art. You won't regret it. I'm going to show you a couple of my spaces. FYI, my child and my husband and anybody who comes to visit is cool with this. This is just kind of the way it works for us. It's really important to have space that can get a little messy and that can be a little disorganized because it's part of the artistic process. So my desk where I do all my editing and all the emails and whatnot, and then my table where I do most of my filming. You can see I have some really cool IKEA drawers that are helpful for all my little itsy bitsy things like the paintbrushes and the different kinds of paint and all of the stuff that goes in there, including printing material. And so I would say that probably 75% of the usable space in my house is dedicated to art. I don't need a lot of space for my personal life. I could live in one of those like pods that you find in those Chinese villages where you just kind of like can't even stand upright, you know, you just kind of weasel in. That'd be fine for me. So that's kind of what we do. We have our living space upstairs and then we have art space downstairs, and I have a lot of different zones. Another zone is this back room where I will work on larger projects if needed, and sometimes some photography, sometimes some resin work. I also have my resin spray booth, which is terrific because I can vent it really well and everything's coated in plastic. Also, if I was Dexter, this room would be amazing. I'm not Dexter, I've just used resin, but it would be a dual purpose. Could be a selling point if we ever try to sell the house. If you have other questions about art and the artistic process, please write them below. And as ever, like this video, follow me if you don't follow me already, and check out my other socials below. Bye. You do kind of need a location and some basic spatial requirements. And we need a table spa. It's just a table spa. I love a good table spa.